Gloria Allred. Some questions for Gloria. So, anybody, please. Yes.
Hi, Gloria.
Hi. Do we have a mic for anyone in the audience?
I probably don't need one.
Okay. Love it.
Why don't you just run for president?
Well, I know my role. My role is to be an advocate for change, for rights of women and rights of voiceless and hope to the hopeless and power to the powerless, to act as a private attorney general. But I encourage all of you, because all of you are what the Women's March leaders said last weekend. You are the leaders that you have been waiting for. So give yourself a round of applause. And I thank you for that you said that. But I also want you to think of yourself seriously as potential candidates for office. Twice as many women now have said that they are going to run for office. We need more women, more minorities as leaders, as role models. So I encourage you, and if you don't want to run, help to support someone else's campaign. And do what and that's what I said last weekend at the Respect rally right here at Park City nearby. And I said to everybody, resist, insist, persist, and elect. So let me hear it. Resist, insist, persist, elect. One more time. Resist, insist, persist, elect. And give yourself a round of applause. Let's have another question, and then I want to introduce somebody. Yes.
The United States is the only developed country in the world, besides only one other country, New Guinea, that doesn't have mandatory parental leave. Is this in any way on your agenda? Is there any way to fight this?
Is there any way to fight not having mandatory parental leave? Well, we have the Family Medical Leave Act, but we don't have guarantees of paid leave,
it's not
parental
paid,
leave, and that's what's really important. So, I always say, no, women have never ever been given any rights, including the right to vote. We've always had to fight to win them. It took us 72 years to win the right to vote, from the first Women's Rights Convention in 1848 to 1920, when we won the right to vote after women were lobbying and picketing and protesting, and in England they were fasting and they were being forcibly fed, and one woman threw herself in front of the king's horse and was killed to show that women do not have the right to vote. We have to win the right to vote. We finally won it, and then now it's been 95 years since we have been fighting for the passage of the Equal Rights Amendment to the United States Constitution, and we have not won that yet. So it really takes all of us. And that's why we have to stand up for change in order to win our rights, because that's the only way. If we fight for them, if we insist and we resist and we persist and we elect, that's how we win our rights. So do we have another question here? Oh, I'm sorry. Let me just introduce one other person before the next question. You saw her briefly in the film. She is a resident of Utah. I am proud of her courage, because she is one of the women who is brave enough to tell what she says is the truth about her life, and that President Trump, when he was not president, engaged in sexually inappropriate conduct with her, and she spoke out. And I'm so proud to introduce her. Come on out. Temple Taggart. Want to say anything about the film real quickly?
I just have to say I'm so proud of Gloria and the work that she's done, not only for women, but just for in general, sorry, I didn't mean to be emotional, but just sitting back there watching, I just was fighting back tears, and I just want to thank her for all that she's done and for all that she's been an example to me.
Thank you. Take a lot of credit for that. And Utah, I need you to be the 37th state to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment. Right there in front.
So first and foremost, I want to say thank you for standing up for people who are underrepresented. And I'm sure there's many people here that feel the same way. So thank you so much for being alive and for your work. Second question, or I guess, what recommendations do you have for somebody that's aspiring to be a civil rights attorney in this town?
What recommendations do I have for someone who wants to be a
Civil rights attorney.
Right.
And before I hand the microphone back to Gloria, I just want to get in that the film is going to be on Netflix, launching February 9th. So please spread the word.
Thank you. I'm so thrilled with Netflix, and I know we have representatives from Netflix here at other screenings. By the way, I flew back from LA to just be at this screening today with you. I'm going back tonight because my case is in Texas and North Dakota and lots of other places I have to go next week. So, but I just thank you so much for coming out. So, recommendations for to be a civil rights attorney? Answer is,
Any advice or anything?
permit advice? Do it! We need more good attorneys to help people who are victims of injustice. There aren't enough, there can never be enough. There are people who need you, and you can have a practice where you help people. I always say, if you do good, you'll do well. And you put good out into the world, it will come back to you. That's my belief. Maybe not from that particular case, but in general, it's just what I believe. And so, do it, is all I can say. You can do it, have confidence in yourself. When I found out that some of the male lawyers that had become lawyers were not as smart as I always thought they were, I realized I could do it. So I can do that. It's not that hard. If you work hard, it's really, that's what it's all about. So if your daughters are thinking about it, your mothers are thinking about it, sisters, and we also need good male attorneys who are committed to helping. So I thank God. You saw two of my partners who, not here today, they were here earlier this week, who were with me been with me for the 42 years I've been practicing law, and they have been very committed, women's rights, civil rights, minority rights, attorneys, and they can't even imagine a life without it now. So yes, we need you. Thank you. Another one? Oh, over here. Okay.
Yes, you've been patient.
So I just passed the bar in November, and one thing that I found really interesting that you've done is utilize both the press and the law in order to advance the kinds of messages that you are trying to send and represent your clients. And I think that in the legal field, there's a responsibility to use the press and to use the public in a way that is responsible. And how do you manage those two things while making sure that you're still representing your client in the best way possible?
So that's a good question. For those of you who couldn't hear briefly, is how do you manage your client cases and, and the law and the press and make both of those possible? The answer is very carefully, because I really have to think about the needs of my client first and what's the goal and whether this is going to help or hurt. 99% of the cases we do, you'll never hear about. You'll never hear who that person was that we represented, against whom. You'll never hear the person's name either. We do a lot of confidential settlements before a lawsuit, and you'll never hear who was involved, where I did it, how much we won for that client with the settlement, or who the opposing party was, the accused. So it really depends on the client's needs and how we think we can help to accomplish the goals for our clients. All that, I have to be there to support her, and I think we have a degree of trust from other attorneys that if we say it's going to be confidential, it's going to be confidential. but obviously a lawsuit is not confidential, it's a public document. So it's case by case, person to person. That's the answer to that. Yes?
Are Donald Trump's assault victims still coming out? What's going to happen with that case against Donald?
The case that we have, that I filed on behalf of Summer against Donald Trump.
And the other women who have come out?
Okay, this is the only case by any of the women, I don't know if there's 19 now, however many there are, who spoke out during the campaign very courageously. It's a defamation case. We filed it in New York. The president has filed, through his attorneys, a motion to dismiss our defamation lawsuit against him. And we have filed our opposition, and he has filed his reply. He had several arguments in his 58-page motion to dismiss, including that he's legally immune from the lawsuit because he's president. We responded, Paula Jones versus Clinton, that the United States Supreme Court decided that no man is above the law, including the President of the United States, for unofficial acts. We allege that if we could prove defamation, that's an unofficial act. That was, in other words, calling her a liar, and then some, that was committed by him prior to his ever being elected president, so it's an unofficial act. Then another argument is that his attorneys argued he's too busy, that he's president 24/7, and we argued he's not president every minute 24/7, but we'll be respectful of his schedule. We will accommodate his schedule in the event that we are permitted to proceed with this lawsuit. We would be happy to take his deposition, that's testimony under oath at Mar-a-Lago between rounds of golf. Anyway, the bottom line is we argued it in early December in New York, and we are awaiting the court's decision as to whether we can proceed. The court has not given us a time frame, but she said that she will e-file her decision. And of course, it's a complicated case, and we will be respectfully standing by and awaiting her decision. I'm sure everyone will hear about it when that happens. All right, other questions? And of course, if you have any questions also for Sophie, as director and producer of the film, feel free to ask. Yes, please.
Well, first of all, Sophie, thank you for making this film.
Yeah. Sophie. And I also want to acknowledge, unless she's not here, Roberta Grossman, who was terrific producer-director with Sophie, and Marta Kaufman. Marta, who also produced the film, created Friends. You've seen Friends on television. And Grace and Frankie, also on Netflix. So that's Marta Kaufman and Hannah. Okay, but anyway, so they did a really super job. We're very honored to be at Sundance. Yes?
Well, and then my question was this. In the film, you made the comment that the only thing that you were afraid of was not being able to accomplish everything you wanted to before you died. And I was wondering, what are those top 3, 5, whatever that number is, what are those top issues that you want to see accomplished? What are your priorities? You've mentioned the ERA. What else?
Well, I mean, I guess, equal rights of men is definitely number 1, because women are not in the Constitution except for the right to vote, the 19th Amendment, and we need that legal protection because any rights that have been passed by statute by the Congress, which are not too many for women, can be rolled back any time if we don't have that guarantee that equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. That's the Equal Rights Amendment. But also keeping abortion safe and legal, all of our reproductive rights, and affordable and available. And apparently there are those in Congress and the White House who think it's okay to roll back and eliminate funding for some of our military people, for women, for contraceptives, and yet are still willing to fund Viagra. That's not right, is it? And of course, any issues, involving poverty, this is in no particular order really, except for the Equal Rights Amendment, but, there's so many women forced to live in poverty, forced to, because they can't get their child support in the amount that is ordered, or the time that is ordered, so they're forced under welfare, which is not where they want to be, but because we don't have the enforcement of child support laws that we should have for mothers, and mothers don't have money to hire attorneys and go get their child support. We need district attorneys to do it. So that's also important to me, so that mothers can properly support their children, or fathers if they have sole custody of the children. And also, of course, gender violence, any issues, rape, sexual harassment. As you see, we fought in 3 states to change the law, which we did. The statute of limitations for sexual harassment and for rape and sexual abuse. What that is if there's a statute of limitations, it's a limitation on the time when you can either file a claim in a lawsuit, or you can have your case criminally prosecuted. And if you are past that time, you can't. So what we did in California is we worked to eliminate that time period completely for criminal prosecution of rape and sexual assault. Because I said it's ridiculous. The only time where there is no time period, no bar, no time period for asserting rights is a murder case or embezzlement of public funds. Well, I think if a woman is victimized by gender violence, that's at least as important as the embezzlement of public funds. There should not be a time limit on that. We eliminate that. So I'll just say thank you. And I know you're applauding also for all the brave women in the film who made that possible, because we all have to do this together. It's the only way it happens. Now I would also like to see the elimination of any time period, statute of limitations, for civil cases of sexual harassment and rape and sexual abuse, and also elimination of any statute of limitations for child sexual abuse. That is really important. Would you agree? And last thing, and you know that when I say now I'd like to see, it's not like something you observe, okay? We have to work for it. You have to go to your legislators. You have to say, this is not acceptable. I want to change it. I want you to introduce a bill. I want to come and testify on that bill. I'm going to do what Mother Jones said, not agonize. I'm going to organize. I want to make this happen. That's what we have to do.
One more question.
I felt like the film was especially timely. I was wondering when you started making it and how you synced it up so well.
We got very lucky in that regard as filmmakers. We started it in 2014, right before the Cosby scandal kind of broke in the media and just kind of exploded. And we started following Gloria through that very dramatic and high-profile case. We could not have anticipated what would have happened with Me Too. It was just really amazing. We were actually just about done with the film when that happened, and we felt like we had to thread it in there. We didn't, we had the film pretty much done at that point, but we felt like it really showed, it kind of almost reframed the film, knowing that that was where we were headed. And that these women who came out with Cosby were so brave. In many cases, they were not believed at the beginning. It took a long time. Gloria had a huge role in shaping public opinion on that case. And then by the time the Harvey Weinstein, she really did. And by the time the Harvey Weinstein thing happened, it was much more accelerated. So, and Gloria might have a few things to say.
I represent numerous alleged victims of Harvey Weinstein, so there's more. And then they had to lock the film up at a certain point, so they couldn't cover my brave client who spoke out against Roy Moore, but we're proud of her. all I can say is like that just gave me a taste going through the more thing of what it was like for Hillary, so many years, the lies and all of that. But thank God the voters did the right thing, and I'm just so proud of Beverly, of my client in Alabama, and all of the other women who spoke out. One of the women, you know, became the victim of arson, had her house burned down afterwards. So, you know, these are really, when I say that, you know, women who speak up are really heroes and courageous, I mean it, because there's serious consequences, but they're willing to pay whatever price to have what they say is their truth heard. And that's what we want to do, is we want to empower women. And I know that, is our time up? I don't want to go. No. All I'll say is thank you so